kind of get an idea, where we are in terms of those numbers and what they say in as far as political parties are concerned. We now welcome with us a political analyst, Professor Ntsikelelo Breakfast, and of course he is joining myself and Dr. Ronesh Daraj right here just for some analysis. Professor Breakfast, a very warm welcome to you. Of course, we've been here, since the 29th of May, pretty much, and now it has come to this. It's down to the wire, as they say, for most political parties. Your interpretations of what we are currently seeing, the Northern Cape, of course, having declared their numbers, they're done. The ANC not having that 50 plus that they needed. What can we read in terms of those numbers coming out from the Northern Cape?
First of all, I don't think that it's still early days. I think we can extrapolate based on this. We can move from specific to general. I think the prediction is that the ANC will not reach the threshold of 50%, which creates a scope for coalition arrangement. But the interesting thing for me is that there are losers and winners. The biggest loser is the ANC, largely because one-party dominance is a thing of the past, and the hegemony of the ANC has been dealt with a blow in a big way. Secondly, the biggest winner has been Umkhonto weSizwe, but then we must examine an interesting phenomenon that we have not been able to tease out as political analysts, which is the political psychology of the electorate. In terms of, democracy is about government of the people, by the people, for the people, we respect the will, but the question is, the way people have voted, is it an expression of rationality? I think we need to debate that, because for instance, you have a person, for instance, who is the embodiment of the party, who gave a president of the Constitutional Court a middle finger, but then he's voted on a large scale. What is the meaning of that?
Prof, you raise an important point, because I was talking, to Dr. Daraj about what are we missing, as South Africans, in terms of this story. What is this story telling us in terms of these political parties? I think when, Herman Mashaba earlier on said a lot of people did not see the MK party coming. Why not? Dr. Daraj, maybe you can just add on in terms of what Professor Breakfast is saying, and just looking at the narrative that is coming out in terms of how South Africans vote and who they vote for.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with Prof. Breakfast. Obviously the other big winner in these elections is the Patriotic Alliance as well. We saw the Patriotic Alliance not doing so well in 2014, not featuring anywhere in 2019. But suddenly 5 years later, here's a party that has connected to its constituencies in the Northern Cape, in the Eastern Cape, as well as the Western Cape, and obviously some parts of Gauteng. The full results aren't out as yet. Yeah, but going back to what the narrative of these elections are, obviously we spoke about turnout. Umkhonto weSizwe is the big winner, but what does that say about these elections? The ANC was caught off guard. The media was caught off guard. Opinion polls kind of gave us a picture, an inkling of, this is what's going to happen on election day. We all underestimated the Umkhonto weSizwe party. At research, obviously the department that I come from within the SABC, to our benefit, we had 6 by-elections that the Umkhonto weSizwe party actually participated in before this election. Obviously, they announced on 16 December 2023 that this is the party, they're going forward to contest the elections. Then we saw 2 by-elections in KZN, where the MK party split the vote. They took away potential votes from the ANC in 2 wards, Abakolusi and Upongolo, and those wards, obviously they were IFP wards, so the IFP retained those wards. They did slightly better in Mpumalanga, another by-election, but they also contested in the Eastern Cape, they contested in Mpumalanga, Northwest, and I think there was another place, I can't remember the other place, but their MK did not feature at all. They actually got around 0.something%. So we read wrongly into that. We just assumed that this party is not a threat to anybody. Maybe there is a stronghold KZN, maybe parts of Mpumalanga, but we restricted MK to those areas. But what we are seeing at these elections, it speaks volumes.
Prof, of course, we're still waiting for the big metros, to come in. I know you're saying it's not early days. You pretty much said in terms of, who is going to come out. But Just in terms of the ANC story, because as much as we don't want to keep talking about the ANC, it is important to talk about the ANC in relation to it being the 30 years into democracy. They are the Liberation Party. We know what essentially is being said about liberation parties, particularly 30 years in the making. But what do we read into the ANC coming into this election?
The arrogance of power of the ANC has caught up with them. I think people now, they see the sense of urgency to make a call about the future of the country. But you will never know whether you have a democracy or not until the losers accept that they've lost. So the key question for me is the ANC going to let go of power? If they do that, I will applaud them for a good job, well done. Because in some countries, we've seen the military coming in and so on, taking
but
over.
What does that look like if the ANC is willing to let go of power? I mean, at the moment, we have projections putting them at just recently at just 40%.
It means that our democracy has been consolidated. You must remember, democracy is not an event, it's a process. So now our democracy has been matured.
Do you want to just come in there, Dr. Dawat, in terms of that saying? Well, not even that saying, but just looking at the ANC and I mean the trajectory that we are currently seeing.
Absolutely.
You look at the floor, you look at where most of the leadership is sitting. It is not a pretty picture at the moment.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Fully agree with Prof. Breakfast again on this as well. You look at the African continent, liberation parties. The ANC is the oldest liberation party on the African continent. So there was always the assumption, and even ANC leaders touted this, to the media very valiantly in the past, saying that, the ANC will govern until Jesus comes.
Yeah.
But what they don't acknowledge is that voting trends, voting patterns change. And very importantly, the electorate changes as well. I take your mind back to 2014, 2019, and now 2024. The voters' roll, the registered voters' roll, is very different to the voters' roll of 1994. Here we have people with no experience of apartheid. Their parents, their grandparents, their great-grandparents probably have that experience, so they haven't experienced that, that kind of reality. So they have different issues they want to vote on, and that's why they came out, in their numbers on May 29, and that's why we are seeing the kind of changes that we did see. And eventually, when we see the final picture, you will understand. But it is a very positive sign, like Prof. Did allude to. It is a sign of our maturing democracy. When there's multi-party democracy, the arrogance disappears. The humbleness actually seeps into the equation, and people tend to negotiate. They humble themselves when it comes to negotiations. We've seen this in coalition agreements, although most of them have been a little noisy, a little rowdy, but I think at national level it will somehow play out differently. But I think it is a very, very good sign for all of us 30 years into democracy. Maybe that is the biggest narrative takeaway from this election, that our democracy has matured. The governing party, was assured of a huge majority before, 50% plus one. That has been challenged, and the opposition has been made stronger. So I think it's a very, very positive sign for us as South Africans.